The next important issue we need to think about is putting together the successful project team that most likely have people who are assigned to these 4 different roles. We need to have people involved in project sponsorship and governance. We want set of people who manage the project. We want the development team. We can see them in bright green here. These are the people who are core to the BI project. And then we have extended project team, which are going to support our development. People involved in testing, people involved in maintenance. Even we might have a team for training or business analysts who are going to play a secondary but important role for our project. And if a company is sizable and if the project is relatively large, we might have these roles filled with one or more than one people. But if that's not the case, if we're dealing with a small project, it's possible that an individual might take up some of the roles that are shown in this hierarchy. So let's talk specifically about the project development or the core team. The core team includes people who are taking up 4 main roles. There are a set of people who are going to be a business analyst. This is a sub-team of people that they could be either part of the business departments or they could be part of IT, but overall they're responsible for gathering and prioritizing business needs, and they are the people who will translate them into data and system requirements. They usually have very good understanding of the business, and they would interact with business people in terms of checking for data quality and completeness and making sure that the business side will provide feedback on how the solution is going to meet their expectations. At the same time, we have a team that works on the architecture. These are people who would design and develop the overall architecture. They will select probably the appropriate vendor and technology. They will work on the data models. They will map the overall data workflow onto the source systems, making sure that data will flow into our ETL process, and it will properly feed our BI tools. And from the technical perspective, they will also work with the developers, again, making sure that the solution is appropriate for what the business is intended to get. So successful deployment of the system and also architecture is also part of this team's roles. Architecture related to information, related to data, related to technology, related to products, which were elements that we have discussed before. We also have a team of data integration that is responsible for basically ETL. And these are the people who will design and deploy the ETL process and making sure that everything works and all of our tools are being properly fed by appropriate data, and all the BI analytics tools also receiving the data that they need. So they are similar to architecture, but I would say they are more focused on ETL processing. And finally, we have the BI development team, which will design and create the analytics tools and the reports that a customer or client will interact in order to do their day-to-day job. So this is typically an iterative process. It requires a lot of interaction with the business or the client to make sure that the system that's being developed is going to meet their expectations. And these are basically some detailed roles that are associated with each of the teams. I'm not going to explain each of these in detail, but again, the number of people involved in this project or in an organization that's implementing BI, it all depends on the resources. So if it's large organization or large project, we might have people or multiple people filling up these roles. If that's not the case, some of these roles might be picked up with one person. I have personally worked as a business analyst where I was the only one in a project, or I was part of a team of up to even 30 business analysts. So it all depends on the context. Another important issue that is sometimes being neglected in BI project is to refuse to acknowledge the need for training. And this is one way that a company might fail to realize the full potential offered by a business intelligence package. And it's something that I have seen not being emphasized enough. When we say training, we're talking about training that could be regarding the fundamentals of BI. Let's say a team of business people who might not know the foundations of BI, literally anything that we've been teaching in this course, or they don't know the best practices, and they need to get educated before working with these services. The second one could be tool-specific training. So once we have our BI tool or self-service BI tool, we should train the consumers and the customers in order to be able to use the package in the best way possible. And sometimes that can be done using use cases. Could be example like doing a project that would require intense use of the application, which is similar to the way we are implementing, let's say, our group project in this course. Now, training doesn't just apply to the business side. The IT department might need some training. We might have technical people who might not be familiar with DW or a specific ETL tool, or even SQL or database. So that there's some training that might be involved. Sometimes I've seen IT departments skip formal training, and they might just be focusing on the knowledge people bring to the project. Sometimes that would work, sometimes it might not, but that definitely requires some attention. I have been involved in projects where we might actually send IT department or a few people to a certain training, let's say developing developing an ETL data flow or using specific functions of SQL, especially if we can predict that we're going to need these skills in the near future. So we can plan it, send our IT department to get that, improve their knowledge on those topics. But at the same time, for business, most likely we need to teach people how to run analytics, the fundamentals of it, different types of analytics tools that's going to be available to them, especially through the technology that's being provided. We need to think about data. Some use cases might be used in order to properly use the technology. We want to tell them about what kind of aggregation they can do, any kind of filters that they can do, or anything that's, again, specific to the package that's being implemented. And finally, we need to think about data governance. So data governance overall is the process that we use in our organization in order to make sure that we are managing availability, integrity, and security of the data. In terms of the rules, the measurements, the business metrics, the policies, and the procedures. This is typically a formal process. The goal of data governance is to make sure that our data is trustworthy in our organization, and we are providing business value by managing and handling this data. And this is data governance traditionally was pretty structured, but as we move toward unstructured and, let's say, big data formats that are being stored in the cloud, data governance becoming very challenging. Again, handling data in a way that it's, meets all the internal standards and policies of the organization is becoming quite a challenge. There is a short video on data governance, which I will attach to the Blackboard. It will be posted subsequent to this video. But in data governance overall, we would like to take care of data creation. We are focused on data movement and transformation and integration, the measurements and their definitions, any kind of data models. You're thinking of the master data or reference data or lookup data. Any changes in the data should be documented, and we want to make sure that right people have access to the right information, and the delivery of that information needs to be handled, and also information consumption, basically how people are using the data that's available to them for reporting and analysis. And again, overall, data governance helps us make sure that the data is trustworthy and it provides that business value we're looking for. And if you look at this diagram, we have data governance at the center of interaction between technology and analytics. We also have COE, which is centers of excellence, and these are centers, could be a group of people, could be a team, could be a formal department in an organization where we bring in all the knowledge and expertise regarding, let's say, business intelligence or data integration. So people who are good at this will be part of that. And then every time we have, let's say, a new BI implementation, we are going to seek these experts' knowledge and advice in order to make sure that our efforts going to be successful. So basically, centers of excellence help us build, again, the formal knowledge or some key processes, like, let's say, establish a methodology and the expertise that's required across the enterprise. So they won't be allocated to a single project or single department. These are usually all the expertise that we might have, critical expertise that will help us basically implement successful projects across the organization. So last but not least, what are the tips for better governance? Again, communication matters a lot. We need to think about all the stakeholders and who's going to have access to the data. We need to make sure that we have established our sources of truth. So what's going to be the ultimate data that we're going to consider truth for usage in BI tools. We need to know that data governance should be done outside of the developers team. This is not something developers need to worry about. It's part of organization and business sides roles and responsibilities to handle this. We want to identify a data framework and stick to it, and there are formal data governance frameworks. A lot of consultants actually might be brought in to implement a methodology and the framework for data governance. And like anything else we do regarding technology implementation, we want to start small and then build on our success in order to make sure that we are covering this across the organization.